4th grade. Chapter 24, Dead Man's Island. Dear Zach, tonight I'm going to kayak to Dead Man's Island. Here's why it's called Dead Man's Island. 200 years ago, 2 explorers canoed to Dead Man's Island together to collect samples. But when they got there, one of them murdered the other and left the body there. When he started to canoe back, the ghost of the dead man haunted the area around the island and made him lose his way. A few days later, an empty canoe came to the shore. The sand on Dead Man's Island is red because of the dead man's blood. Now get this, I'm going to kayak there by myself in the middle of the night to collect red sand for Color War. Gabe had woken up so early, he finished writing to Zach before the siren even went off. The air was cool and crisp, and a wavy patch of orange light shone through the bottom of the window. He reread the first line of his letter. Tonight I'm going to kayak to Dead Man's Island. He didn't have to. He could back out. Like Nikhil said, it was just one item in a long scavenger hunt list, and chances were no other team would have it either. Or he could let C-Squared or another older kid go. C-Squared had offered, but Gabe had said he would do it. And he'd said it with such surety. He hadn't even flinched. At least, he hoped he hadn't. It's just kayaking, he thought. But it wasn't just kayaking. It was kayaking by himself, in the middle of the night, in pitch black, to somewhere he had never been and wasn't supposed to go. Somewhere that was haunted. C-Squared had given him a map and a compass. But there wouldn't be any lifeguards on the dock watching and ready to jump in and save him. And there wouldn't be any counselor to count up the kids and notice that he hadn't come back. According to the map, Dead Man's Island was small and perfectly circular. It was just around the bend in the lake, through a narrow inlet that was hidden by clumps of trees that hung over the water, and just beyond a round area marked Lily Pad Lagoon. Gabe didn't think the legend could be true, and he didn't think he believed in ghosts. But he also didn't think he wanted to kayak there alone at night and find out. But there was no other way to do it. He couldn't go during the day because he had the water sports competition instead of regular swim time. And anyway, he'd get in trouble if he tried to go with lifeguards watching, since you were only allowed to kayak in the marked area. That was also why he couldn't go during free time. The lifeguards would be there. The only time was after lights out, and there was no one to go with him. Nikhil was good at kayaking, but there was no way he'd even consider something as unsafe as this. Wesley would love to go, but he was terrible at kayaking. C-Squared or one of the older kids could go with him, but that would mean admitting he was too scared to go alone. A couple of other boys from his bunk had offered too, but the more Gabe thought about it, the more he felt that he needed to tackle this alone. Of course he was scared, but why? He'd just go there, get a cup of red sand, and come back. No need to even get out of the kayak. Above him, Wesley wiggled onto his side and hugged the inside of his sleeping bag. He murmured, "You can do it." Gabe nodded. I can do it, he thought. Zach will think I'm so cool. He had to. There was nothing geeky about an adventure like this. He'd be going back to the non-camp world soon, becoming Zach's brother for real, and he wanted to fit in his new family. And here at camp, kayaking to Dead Man's Island would make him a hero on his team, and it would impress C-Squared. He knew what Zach would think of C-Squared. C-Squared had skipped 2 grades and thought science was fun. But he wondered what C-Squared would think of Zach. Gabe wouldn't want C-Squared to see Zach's letters, that much was sure. He didn't know whose opinion was right, or whose he should care about more. Well, he thought, kayaking to Dead Man's Island will impress them both. The silence of the morning was cut by the blare of the wake-up siren, and the boys began to stir. Ready or not, today was the day. Chapter 25, Friction Coefficient. It was the second day of Color War, and the competitive spirit of the camp was fired up. Gabe's counselor passed some tubes of green face paint around the bunk, and the boys applied it like war paint. Gabe put lines under his eyes like a football player would do. Nikhil wrote green on his left arm and nation on his right. When Wesley returned after 10 minutes in the bathroom, he had a big symbol on his whole face. "That's cool," said Nikhil. "What is it?" "Duh," said Wesley. "It's a G." Gabe cocked his head. Did you do it in the mirror? Yeah, why? He cracked up. Because it's backward. At breakfast, the director of the camp read out the current standings. In 4th place, she shouted, is the yellow team with 90 points. Yellow broke into applause, but the other 3 teams cheered even louder because if yellow was in last place, it meant that they weren't. In 3rd place, she called, is the green team with 145 points. Red and blue cheered the loudest now, and green clapped. Some girls from one of the green bunks started chanting, "That's all right, that's okay, we're gonna beat you anyway." The rest of green joined in, but the director quieted them down after 2 rounds. In 2nd place, she announced, with 160 points, is the blue team. We're only 15 points behind, said Nikhil excitedly. 1 win in water sports or the obstacle course and we'll move up. Or 1 item they don't have on the scavenger hunt, said Wesley, like red sand. Gabe nodded stoically. And in 1st place, the director said, even though she could barely be heard above the talking, with 205 points is the red team. Red broke into a rousing rendition of "We're Red, We Rock," and the other teams clapped politely. Then yellow began chanting, "Go Red, you rock," in an obvious effort to snag the 200 points for sportsmanship that were still up for grabs. The director reminded them that today's battles were worth a total of 800 points, and tomorrow the scavenger hunt was worth another 400. Add team spirit and sportsmanship for 200 each, she said, and it's still very much anyone's game. So, eat a big breakfast and get ready to give it your all today. Between the amped-up atmosphere and the super fun battles, Gabe could almost forget what he was going to do that night. The first battle was the obstacle course, which was rumored to always be one of the best parts of Color War. It absolutely lived up to expectations. First, you had to jump through a line of tires. Then you had to solve 3 arithmetic problems inside a smelly porta potty. After that, you had to run with an egg on a spoon across the field, and dropping the egg cost your team points. After depositing the egg in your team's color-coded bin, you came to a huge map of the world on the ground, and you had to locate the country or body of water that the counselor called out. From there, you slid down a giant inflatable slide into a mud pit. Once you used the mud as paint to correctly spell a word on a wall, you were done. The counselors had to do it too, as did the teachers, and even the director and the nurse. Miss Carey screamed as she went down the slide, and Mr. Justice dunked his whole body in the mud pool and emerged with long, dripping dreadlocks of mud. By the end of the morning, the entire camp was a walking, grinning, gloopy brown mess. The younger kids had water sports in the afternoon, and Gabe did everything he could to rack up points for green. While he was standing on the dock, wearing his towel still and getting ready to compete in the first race, he had a moment of panic and thought that maybe he shouldn't be doing everything he could to win. Maybe he shouldn't be wearing what he was wearing under his towel. After all, this wasn't a regular swim meet, where everyone was representing a swim team. Gabe removed his glasses and handed them to the lifeguard. Then he shifted his prescription goggles from his forehead onto his face, and the lake once again came into focus. He saw the other swimmers drop their towels and toss them behind themselves. They were all wearing the type of bathing suit Gabe usually wore to swim in the lake, knee-length and baggy with cargo pockets on either side. Too late to change now, he thought. He removed his towel to reveal his suit, a Speedo. He heard the crowd behind him gasp. He could hear some of the boys laughing and could sense the girls pointing. He didn't even want to think about what Amanda's reaction would be. But he could also see that his competitors were nervous. They knew he meant business. "No fair," complained the red swimmer. "He's got so much less friction." "Yeah," said Yellow. "His friction coefficient is probably like 0.05. "On your mark," shouted the lifeguard. Gabe moved to the edge of the dock, bent over, and assumed a launching position. The other swimmers did the same, following his lead. "Get set!" Gabe lifted his butt into the air. He didn't even hear the snickers behind him or the person who said, "I see green team's underpants." He was in the zone. Go! Gabe catapulted off the dock and cut swiftly through the water. The other swimmers didn't stand a chance. He tagged the floating island and swam back to the dock almost twice as quickly as the second-place finisher from Blue. The green team went crazy. A bunch of bunkmates rushed toward him to pat him on the back or hug him, or lift him onto their shoulders. They stopped a few feet away once they remembered the Speedo. Still, Gabe thought, I'll be a hero squared after tonight. All right. In chapter 26, The Late Night Voyage, we'll find out how everything goes down later this week. See you guys later.